Welcome back everybody to EICMA in Milan, the biggest and best motorcycle show in the world, and now we're at the Honda stand for a look at the new GB350S. Now you may well recognize this bike because it has been on sale, or variants of it anyway, elsewhere in the world, but new for 2025 it is coming to Europe, and so here we go with all of the details that you need to know about it. So look, first up we'll start with the engine, and it's a 350 single cylinder that's air cooled, and of course that's going to match the traditional aesthetic of this bike. Naturally, being air-cooled, it's not particularly powerful, so it's about 21 horsepower, but it does make up for it with a very long stroke. That means it's got that good chuggability and makes 29 Newton meters of peak torque. So look, I think you've got to think of this bike as a competitor for something like a air-cooled Royal Enfield 350, which also makes about the 20 horsepower mark and similar torque figures, rather than something more modern like the Triumph Speed 400, for example, which is liquid cooled and makes more like 40 horsepower. Like I say, I think the air-cooled nature of it, the character of it, the sound of it is going to suit this bike really nicely, and so it'll be a pleasant ride, providing you're not wanting to get anywhere particularly quickly. Similar story as well with the chassis, so I think this kind of traditional aesthetic stems back to a lot of the kind of technical choices and the way that the bike's built up. So it's a tubular steel cradle frame, suspended on a fairly simple right way up fork that's non-adjustable, and then twin shocks out at the rear, which of course are preload adjustable, so you can set it up for riding with a passenger, but that's pretty much it. Up front we've got a single disc, I think it's a 310mm disc, and it's got a 2-pot Nissan caliper, a 240mm disc at the rear, and then as for the wheels, you've got a 19-incher up front that definitely gives it that more old school look, and a 17 at the rear. Now they're not spoked, they're cast, but I still think it gives it that almost Bonneville-esque aesthetic, and they're riding on actually what I think are basically adventure tyres, so Metzeler's Tourances necks, and that's probably because of the 19-inch front. You are a little bit limited with tyre choice sometimes, but I'd rather see those perhaps than something like a Pirelli Phantom, which is built to be like a retro style tyre that's built for that kind of image, because these are really proper good tyres. As for the dimensions, well, this is going to be a really nice manageable bike, one that's probably perfect for riding through traffic, so it'll be a great commuter and things like that, with a curb weight of 178 kilograms, which, you know, it's not super light, but certainly at the lighter end of the spectrum. The seat height comes in at 800mm as well, so it should be easy to flat foot for most riders. And then ergonomically, you can see it's a very neutral bike that, again, suits this sort of upright retro. The bars are fairly high up, you've got plenty of room down to the pegs, and I'll also say, for a relatively modestly sized bike, it does look pretty good for a passenger as well. Now, on the tech front, it's a very simple bike as well. It all plays into this kind of heritage vibe, so you've got a traditional-looking analog speedo with a few lights around the outside. But that's it, no connectivity or menus or anything like that. There is, however, ABS, as you'd expect, so I think it's dual channel ABS as well, so different for the front and rear. And it does get HSTC, which is Honda's name for traction control. So I assume you can switch it on and off, but otherwise, yeah, there's no riding modes or settings or anything particularly complicated. You do get LED lighting all round, which does look quite modern. I like the way that contrasts against the silhouette of the bike, and it's got that emergency stop signal feature, which basically flashes the rear indicators under heavy braking to try and avoid anyone running into you from behind. So yeah, a very simple cockpit for what is a simple bike, but I think it works quite nicely. What I will say is if you do want to add navigation, media, things like that, then we recommend Quadlock, who we thank massively for supporting the channel by sponsoring EICMA. Back home, we fit Quadlock to pretty much all of the bikes we test, so we use their handlebar mount pro, we use their vibration dampener to protect the phone from any harmful vibes, and also their wireless charging head, which keeps your phone juiced up without having to plug it in. Genuinely, we love using them, and they've also got a brilliant ecosystem of other products for running, cycling, aviation and things like that. And that includes this selfie stick cum tripod, which we've been using at EICMA to capture all of our content for Instagram and other social media. Loads of brilliant things in their lineup, so do check out the link down in the description below to find out more. And once again, a huge thanks to Quadlock for making trips like this possible. Back to the bike though, and one thing I think we can all agree they've absolutely nailed with this one is the styling. It's just got those perfect traditional proportions, and for me it looks more like a baby Bonneville than something like the Speed 400, which doesn't get the oversized wheels and looks a bit angled forward and sporty. Genuinely, I think they've got all the little features right. It's really nicely proportioned. The details are good as well. And so yeah, I'd fully expect the styling of this bike to be one of its big selling points. The bike behind me has a few accessories as well. So there's a tail cover and a bit of a fairing to give it a little bit of a cafe racer look. And you've also got a choice of 3 color options. So this one is the Puko Blue. You've got a gunmetal black metallic and also a pearl deep mud gray. The other big selling point, though, I think, has to be the price, and I've been very impressed with Honda with a lot of their announcements in this regard recently, like the CB1000 Hornet, which comes in at $8,999. This is another very affordable, very aggressively priced bike at just under £4,000, and that puts it pretty much on a par with the closest direct competitor in my book, which is the Royal Enfield Hunter 350. That one is $3,899, I believe, so maybe you're paying another 100 quid or so for this bike. But to get a Honda for Royal Enfield money, I think is really quite impressive. And look, sure, it's not quite on the same level as something like the Speed 400 from Triumph in terms of performance, but at least you're getting a good £1,000, maybe a little bit more off that bike in terms of what you're going to pay for it. So look, let's wrap up with some scoring. I think in terms of performance, you've got to give this bike 1 star out of 5. It's not exactly a fast bike. It's 20 horsepower. It's not going to knock your socks off. And also I'd say in terms of features, well, it does have the traction control. It's got the ABS. It's got the lights. So I'll give it 2 stars on 5. But it's not really what this bike's about. Like I say, it's designed to give you some of that old school vibe. And so in a way, the more simple, the more it fits the brief. Styling though, we have to go 5 stars. I think it's a fantastic looking bike, and I'd love to know what you think of it in the comments below. And then for price as well, I'm going to go 5 stars. I think under £4,000 for a beautiful looking little retro Honda is good value for money. That gives it a total of 13 stars out of a possible 20, which I think is good going for a fairly little bike like this that isn't really built to go fast. Like I say, let us know what you think of it down in the comments below, and we'll also put our playlist on the screen for all of our EICMA videos where you can see how we've scored some of the other bikes on the screen now, so you can give it a click and watch all of that good content. Do hit subscribe as well if you're not already to keep up to date with all of the announcements here. We've also got Motorcycle Live coming up in a couple of weeks back in the UK. Massive thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in an hour or so.